Now we're going to talk about the Grant administration. In 1868, Ulysses S. Grant, a Civil War hero, accepted the nomination of the Republican Party for the presidency because, as we all know, elections are just big popularity contests, and Republican policies were most popular in the North. However, this almost wasn't beneficial strategy for Grant because without the 500,000 votes of Black Republicans in the South, his victory was very slim. In addition to his only slightly effective election strategy, Grant had a bit of a messy and less than successful presidency. Most cabinet members were not equipped to do their jobs, and they had to rely mostly on the already established party leaders in order to get things done because they were a bunch of freeloaders. Also, they blatantly used the spoils system more than necessary and alienated the disillusioned Northerners, which was not cool. Because of the lack of, say, good cabinet members, the Grant administration was, of course, suspected of corruption, and many people began to oppose so-called Grantism. These Grant haters were called liberal Republicans, and they had the support of the Democrats in nominating their own candidate so that Grant would not be reelected in 1872. Unfortunately for those opposing Grant, he still won with 56% of the popular vote and 286 electoral votes. Actually, this wasn't a good thing because in 1872, as a series of scandals including Credit Mobilier, the Whiskey Ring, and the Indian Ring, and other smaller scandals, all of which members in the Actually, this wasn't a good thing because in 1872, a series of scandals including Credit Mobilier, the Whiskey Ring, and the Indian Ring, and other smaller scandals, all of which members of Grant's administration were found to have participated in, proved the corruption of his administration. In addition to the many, many follies of Grant and his cabinet members, Grant also had to deal with the little financial crisis we like to call the Panic of 1873. The Panic of 1873 was caused by a failure of leading investment from the J. Cook & Company banking firm. And speaking of money, there was also the issue of greenbacks, which were paper currency issued during the Civil War with fluctuating values. The government at this time was pressured to redeem federal war bonds with greenbacks and increase the amount of money circulating in the U.S., but Grant mostly wanted only currency backed by gold, so they created the Specie Resumption Act of 1875. Which stated that greenback dollars would be redeemed by the government and replaced with certificates pegged to the price of gold after January 1st, 1879. The problem with this was that gold-based money was not a supply that could be easily expanded. Now, inflationists decided to create their own political party called the National Greenback Party, which did not survive but kept the issue of money alive within the country and the government. As far as diplomacy in the Johnson and Grant administrations, they sucked. In fact, most foreign affairs were handled by their secretaries of state, Seward and Fish. Seward was responsible for buying Alaska from Russia and also the annexation of the Midway Islands west of Hawaii, while Fish had the task of ending a controversy which said that Britain had violated neutrality laws, which led to the Alabama claims that demanded that Britain pay for damage to American vessels. Fish later wrote the Treaty of Washington, to which the British said they regretted the escape of the Alabama from England in 1871. And I'm done.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to the abandonment of Reconstruction. In 1879, a handful of Southerners tried to regain suffrage. States with the majority or equal amount of whites and blacks tried to intimidate or use violence to undermine the reconstruction of regimes. Whites formed paramilitary organizations like the Ku Klux Klan or the Knights of the White Camel. The Ku Klux Klan is one of the biggest organizations. It was formed in 1866 by the General Nathan Bedford Forrest. They had the largest paramilitary organization, and these leagues armed themselves to police and elections and worked to force all white males to join the Democratic and exclude the African Americans from meaningful political activities. Okay, so the Ku Klux Klan also had midnight rides that bands of white men clad in white sheets and masks covered their horses with white robes, and they created terror in the black communities. The Southerns considered them as proud patriotic societies or a military force against the North. In 1870 and 1871, they passed two enforcement acts, also known as the Ku Klux Klan Acts. These acts banned the states from discriminating against voters based on race. It also gave federal government power to supersede the state courts and prosecute violations of the law. It was the first time that federal government had ever claimed the power to prosecute crimes by individuals under federal law. These laws weakened the Klan. By 1872, the Klan declined throughout the region. Okay, now we're going to talk about the waning Northern commitment. Since the Ku Klux Klan was declining, the support from the North was declining also. Charles Sumner and Horace Greeley considered themselves as liberals who cooperated with the Democrats. The Panic of 1873 was when people were looking for an explanation for poverty and instability, and they looked to social Darwinism. Social Darwinism is the survival of the fittest, or they believe that those who suffer because of their own weakness. The Compromise of 1877 was an election. Republicans sought out new candidates to distance themselves from corruption and to attract liberal blacks. Ruth B. Hayes was one of the candidates who was against Sam Tilden. Tilden won popularity vote by dispute over 20 electoral votes. Tilden 1 vote shy of electoral vote majority. Hayes needed all 20 votes to win. Congress created a special electoral commission to judge dispute votes. Chose 8-7 to give all votes to Hayes. Hayes won the elections. The resolution resulted in compromise between Republicans with the Southern Democrats. Hayes would withdraw last federal troops from the South if Democrats abandoned filibuster of bill. Compromise of 1877 was also involved more financial aid for railroad and internal improvements in South. In order to help them grow business and industrialize, withdraw troops to its south of last Republican state governments.
What does this all amount to? Now we have to discuss what the New South looks like and how its Reconstruction works. By 1877, there was a final withdrawal of Southern troops from the Southern states. Every Southern state government was redeemed, in a sense, and the next powerful class was mostly merchants, industrialists, and financiers who combined the home rule with the conservative ideas and the ultimate goal of perfect economic development. Henry Grady said, "We have sown towns and cities in the place of theories and put business above politics. We have fallen in love with work," which is a pretty accurate representation of what the New South looked like. The leaders in post-Reconstruction wanted to develop an industrial economy and create a New South economy that had progression, a sense of thriftiness, and industry. The New South included the growth of textile merchandising because of the water power that they had. Tobacco has a comeback after the Civil War ends. The tobacco processing industry grows, including James Duke's American Tobacco Factory. The iron and steel industry also grows. Now, the most important thing to recognize about this part of the chapter is that the South was so butthurt about losing the Civil War, they threw all of their butthurtness into work, and in so created economies that were high, or I need to rephrase that entire bit. So I'm going to start from, So the South was butthurt about losing the Civil War, and in doing so, they threw all of their butthurtness into work, which then created really successful economies. However, what they had to do with these economies was rebuild what they had destroyed in the war. So what that required was a better workforce. Women are now needed in the workforce. And so the South needed labor force, so the women swoop in, as always, to save the day. As usual, though, women are looked down upon and given more labor than men for smaller and less income. Now that the African Americans are free, they are drawn to the idea of self-improvement, and in doing so create religions and find ways to make themselves just self-improvement. So the black people entered the middle class by becoming professionals, meaning that they owned their own land or their own business. White policies shifted from subordination, meaning I'm going to start that part over. White policies I'm going to start that part over. White policies I'm going to start that part over. White policies shifted from subordination to segregation. That's all for now, folks.